Okay, so now, very exciting piece here to think about how to use these supporting practices, which you've learned about over this module and across Module 6. To think about how you apply this in a classroom when you are making adaptations. So the goal here is to think about how to adapt a lesson from a program to make it more explicit by incorporating the practice we've talked about. Here are the different practices we discussed in these two modules. And so you've had an opportunity to think about effective methods of listening responses, how to provide immediate specific feedback, and maintain that brisk pace. Those are the different supporting practices that can increase the quality of the explicit instruction, increase the quality of the program itself. And that's a wonderful thing to do. And so in this part of the module, what we'd like you to do is to do what we're going to call let me start it, okay? In this example, we have a teacher, second grade, teaching a lesson on high frequency word reading. This is in a small group. The teacher is implementing the program with fidelity, and the school data team is meeting to decide how to adapt the intervention, focusing on the explicit instruction principle use part of the taxonomy. And the focus here is not going to be on the modeling and practice, but here on the supporting practices. The idea here is that we're going to start you off on something, and then you're going to finish it. And I'll discuss my thinking with you when we're finished. So here's the lesson that we're going to work on. So this is going to be what you're going to see in a video. So this is the lesson. You want to read this to have familiarity with what's happening here. And then we're going to watch this video. And when we watch the video, you're going to have an opportunity to think about the quality of the use of the supporting practices, and then we're going to have an opportunity to look through those together. I'm going to start it, and then you'll finish it. So let's go ahead and watch that video, and we can figure out what we think.
So today we're going to learn two new words. So the first word is group. What's the word?
Group.
Spell group.
G-R-O-U-P. Group.
Write group on your whiteboards. What's the word you just spelled?
Group.
Good job. The new word, or the next word, is example. Say example.
Example.
Spell example.
E-X-A-M-P-L-E.
Good job. Write example on your whiteboard. What is the word?
Example.
Good. We're going to add these two to our list. Group and example to our other high frequency words. Now, when I'm doing this, I'm going to ask one of you to read the word. If you know it in 3 seconds or less, I'm going to put it in the student pile. If you don't know it in 3 seconds or less, I'm going to put it in the teacher pile, which means we need to review it. Okay? Kelsey.
Again.
Ricardo.
Friend.
Leo.
Kind. Key. Call. Not. Full. Little.
Group.
Example. Learn.
Good job. You had them all correct. All right, this time we're going to see if you can do it in less than 2 seconds. Okay, so I'm going to be thinking in my head. 1, 2.
Apple. Child. Group. Example. Word.
Good job. Okay, there was one I think I want to go back to. So I want you to think first, and then I want all of you to say it, okay? So think, read.
Kind.
Good job. Okay, this time it's going to be 1 second or less. Do you think you can do it? Yeah? You think you know these high frequency words?
No.
Okay, we'll see. Ready? Read.
Love. Kind. Group. Example. Learn. Large.
Nicely done, everybody. Keep practicing those high frequency words so that when you see them, they become automatic. Okay?
Okay, so this let me start activity. I'm going to get us started by thinking about these pieces of the lesson, and we're going to decide whether or not the teacher meets the criteria that we've laid out according to the checklist. And as I've said before, this is not about judgment. This is about comparing what the student does to a criterion. What it is we've decided based on our experience, what makes sense to see in explicit instruction. These are all evidence-based principles that we hope to see. So let's talk about the first couple, and then you'll have a chance to finish it. So first, let's talk about maintaining or checking accuracy processing. Does the teacher do that? We can give it a check mark. And you can see the explanation here, which I'll summarize for you, that because the teacher is having the students read the words one by one, she's able to see for each student whether or not they are getting the word correct. So she actually is able to check the accuracy of processing. She also is maintaining it because she has the cold call system. It's very rapid, and so students are going to be engaged throughout. So that is definitely both maintaining and checking accuracy of processing. With matching the learning outcome, this is a little trickier. So in this lesson, we described that the learning outcome is for students to read the words group and example within 1 second. And so that was the specific objective. There are a couple ways in which this may not have met the criterion of matching learning outcome. One is that the teacher had the students spell the words, and spelling was not part of the objective, so it may not necessarily make sense to have the students spell the words. Arguably, that's a common part of sight word instruction, just because it reinforces the spelling of the word as the students learn it. So we could actually probably have incorporated that into the objective and met that criterion. But there's a second piece to this. The second piece is that this teacher not only has students practice group and example, she then, without reviewing the words, has students read other words before without having talked with the students about them previously. So now she's put them in a position to have to remember all of those things without any prior warning about that. And that's probably outside the context of the lesson. So on those ones, on that count, I'm not sure that the questions actually match the learning outcome, which is why we put a circle around it here. So that's not judging the teacher. As you've seen in all of the examples that we've given, we've looked at great lessons, and we've made suggestions for those lessons based on these criteria. So now you're going to have a chance to do this with the lesson that you watched. So go through that, and then we'll have a chance to come back together and talk about it. So good luck finishing this activity. So you've finished it. Yes? Good. Okay. So now let's talk about the rest of these. So next question is whether or not it matches student ability. In this case, I'm going to give it a check mark. Now, you might say, well, how do we know? We know because when the teacher asked the students to read the words, all of the students were able to read the words relatively accurately. There's maybe 1 or 2 words that they didn't read accurately, but in general, it was matched to the level of student ability. Does the way that the responses were elicited match the desired response format? So the teacher getting the students to do things in the way that she wants. We can give this a check as well because the teacher wants the students to say things orally, and the way that she decides to do it, which is showing them the sight word cards, absolutely gets that. She also wants to emphasize speed and fluency, and so she does that in that way. Last here, does she maximize student involvement? She has a number of strategies that she uses to do that. So she, for example, has the students spell the words. Even though we're questioning that about the objective, she does have the students spell the words, she has them read the words, and that is all very quick. Even when she does the individual student responses, it goes quickly enough that probably she is still continuing to maximize student involvement. The only concern I might have here is that the way she's chosen to list responses puts every student on the spot. Not only is it the case that students are going to be forced without prior warning to read a word the teacher has essentially assigned to them, but whether or not the student reads it correctly creates a contingency for the entire group that they're all going to have to reread the word. So I'm not sure that maximizes student involvement, because if I were a student in that class, that group, and I were sort of self-conscious or concerned, I might have felt like I don't want to do this. I might have had anxiety about that, and it might have reduced my actual student involvement. And also, as you know, one-by-one student responses are not the optimal way to maximize student involvement. The advantage, though, is that it does allow her to maintain and check accuracy of processing. So if she wants to check accuracy, she is finding a way to do that. There could be other ways to do it, and she didn't choose to use those. I would say, for me, I would have changed the way that I would have done the sight word practice so that we didn't force each student to be sort of on the spot, okay? So I'm going to give this sort of like a question mark. And I might actually even like circle this one. Okay, so let's talk about providing feedback, being immediate and specific. So is the feedback she gives the students immediate? I think we can say pretty safely that she gives immediate feedback. She's constantly telling students the answers if they don't have them, or she provides sort of immediate responses for the students. Is it specific? That's not something we saw there quite as much. We didn't see as much specific feedback. And so that is an area in which probably it could be improved. In terms of maintaining the brisk pace, does she move on when students are ready? It seems that she does. So she has students who very quickly understood group and example, and so she moved on relatively quickly to doing what essentially was independent practice. And that was a fine strategy for her to do. So she recognized the students knew it. They didn't need a lot of guided practice, or any really almost, and so she moved briskly to the independent practice, which ended up working quite well. The students made very few mistakes, even when she had a very high expectation for the speed of their response. And finally, using the other supporting practices, obviously we can see overall that she does use the other supporting practices. So there are a couple ways in which I might have changed this lesson, particularly in terms of maximizing student involvement by having fewer individual responses and not making student responses affect the performance of the entire group. But besides that, the teacher did a good job of the other things on this list. And when I say good job, the teacher met the criteria here. And I'm not talking about the teacher did a great lesson or a bad lesson. I'm just saying it met most of these criteria with some room for improvement. So that's what I thought. You could decide you don't agree, but those are my perceptions of it.